Pro Group Management. Workers' comp that works for you.
Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers. I'm Paul Enos, CEO of the Nevada Trucking Association, filling in for Sam Shad. Today, we are going to be speaking with Senator Ira Hansen. That's next on an all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
Retail's impact on Nevada's economy? Enormous. 8,600 businesses, large and small, employing 145,000 workers. And last fiscal year, retail paid tax on nearly $60 billion in sales. We're the Retail Association of Nevada. We support retail, we help it grow, and we mean business.
RANNV.org.
The trucking industry is the most resilient link in the supply chain. And for over 90 years, the Nevada Trucking Association has been the voice for the men and women in the trucking industry. From Carson City to Washington, D.C., we advocate for policies to protect our trucking companies and keep commerce flowing. Because Nevada's and America's prosperity is tied to trucks. There's nothing without trucking.
The Nevada Builders Alliance has been protecting the interests of the construction industry for over 50 years. Our programs save members thousands of dollars every year and allow them to provide much-needed benefits to their employees. Our industry also allows Nevada to grow. If you're thinking about a career in the construction industry, reach out. And if you haven't thought of a career in construction, what are you waiting for? We are the Nevada Builders Alliance.
Take a look at Pro Group Management and see how your workers' comp requirements can be met head-on. By taking a proactive approach, Pro Group can assure that your company is meeting or exceeding state and federal standards. As you move forward in your industry, Pro Group moves with you, simplifying regulatory tasks, clearing the way so you can get the job done and look to your future success. Pro Group Management. Workers' comp that works for you.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
Welcome back to Nevada Newsmakers. We are here with one of my good friends, Senator Ira Hansen of Senate District 14. Senator, great to have you back on the show.
Great, it's always good to be here. Thanks,
yeah,
Paul.
I think it's been a while since you and I have done that. Well, no, we did this during the session. You and I did this together.
And then Sam and I did one in between that one. So yeah, we've been doing it together for a while.
Yeah. So, but hey, great to see you again, especially out of Carson City.
Amen.
Let's talk a little bit about your district, because I think it's always important to talk about. You know, you're there as a representative of your constituents in the state Senate. Who are your constituents?
Well, I got a huge district, 38,000 square miles, about a third of the state. Goes from Washoe County clear up to Oahe on the Idaho border. Literally from my house to the end of my district is 400 miles. So it's a big, huge district. Covers rural. I have several Indian tribes in it. Rural, ranching, mining, and then of course Reno and Sparks, industrial areas. Austin, Nevada, Lander County, Battle Mountain, Winnemucca. So it's a huge district. Lovelock.
So how do you balance some of those issues, that your constituents are going to be, dealing with, differently in those communities?
Well, I mainly, honestly, when those kind of issues do come up, focus more on the rural stuff. There's a lot of people representing the urban interests. So I kind of carve out a little extra time and extra effort for the Indian tribes, for the rural folks, for ranching, for mining, because frankly, they have limited representation there. So that's kind of my focus, but that doesn't mean I neglect the urban folks. But there's a lot of us covering urban, only a handful of us left that represent rural Nevada.
Well, and as a rural Nevada kid, even though I haven't lived, there for
Elko in a while, huh?
Well, yeah, I mean, hey, I'm still Elko in my heart. No, I appreciate that, and I do think it's important, especially for rural Nevada, to have good, strong, articulate advocates for their causes.
I hope you're saying I'm one of those.
100%, buddy. No,
thank you for the compliment.
I greatly appreciate you. So this legislative session we just got done a little over a month ago,
right?
What are your thoughts on how the session went? And then I want to talk about after that kind of how it ended.
I actually thought it was not a bad session. Okay, it was my 8th legislative session. I've been there, for a while, since 2010.
Second in seniority in the legislature right now?
Second or third. It's Orange Shaw, me, and Dean and Neil. So I'm right. I think Orange Shell's still number 1 seniority. Dean and I are tied for number 2. But anyway, so I've been there a while. Overall, I thought it was a pretty good session. I thought the Senate ran pretty well. As the Governor Lombardo very early on said, gridlock in government is not necessarily a bad thing. So we had a lot of gridlock. But on the Senate side, things flowed relatively smoothly, in my opinion. And I thought that because of all the vetoes last time, 75 in the previous session, the Democrats who were in the majority were much more receptive to us, at least on the Senate side. Towards the end of the session, though, I think the ball got dropped, especially on the Assembly side, and they didn't get any of the governor's stuff passed, and consequently you had 88 vetoes at the end of this session, which frankly is a good thing. We got rid of a lot of bad bills through those vetoes.
No, and I agree, and I actually had requests in for a couple of those those vetoes as well. The end of the legislative session, I'm sitting there watching it on the monitor outside in the hallway with a big group of folks, and we're getting down to the last 20 minutes,
20 minutes, right?
So, okay, what happened? What happened in the last 30 minutes in the Nevada State Senate?
Well, what's sad is overall the Senate at least ran pretty smoothly up to the last 30 minutes of the entire session. And what happened is we got called onto the floor about 11:30 at night. sine dies midnight. And as I walk on the floor, you see Marilyn Dondero-Luke, who is the president pro tem of the Senate, up on the podium running the show. I literally walk in there and go, what the heck is going on? Because Stavros Anthony, who's lieutenant governor, is required by the Nevada Constitution to be president of the Senate. And for some reason, the president pro tem is up there. So that's the first thing. What the heck's going on? Where's Stavros? And as I'm looking at the door, I see Stavros being blocked at the door from coming in. He's the presiding officer of the Senate. They're not letting him onto the floor.
So who's not letting him onto the floor?
I'm not totally sure. They had locked the doors, is what I was told. And Stavros, I'm looking at the door and I see him there. And so I stand up at this point and I call for a point of order. It's just a parliamentary thing saying, what's going on? I need to know what's going on. So I said, why is the lieutenant governor being blocked from doing his job? He has a constitutional responsibility. And the parliamentarian, Brendan, who's the secretary of the Senate, went up and talked to Marilyn, and Marilyn then stepped down and walked down to her seat where she belonged, yelled at me on the way down, by the way. Really kind of petty. And then Stavros came in and ran the meeting. That's the first weird thing that happened, okay? Then the next weird thing is they pushed 2 resolutions through, a Senate concurrent resolution 8 and 9. Both dealing.
Now, was 8 done before the lieutenant governor was in the podium?
No, it was not. It was after he got there. But what they did is he called, and it was on the agenda for a vote. And normally it is a debatable motion, which means we have an opportunity to discuss it. And the Democrat majority stood up and called for the question. That's a way of stopping debate. You can't do that, though, until there's been a debate. So I objected to that, and then I actually called for what you can do in the legislative process, parliamentary speaking. You can call for reconsideration, at least if you voted with the majority.
On the prevailing side, yep.
Correct. So I first called for a roll call vote. I stood up and said I want a roll call, so just a voice vote, which we did. My side lost. I switched votes to the prevailing side, and then I called for a reconsideration. If you look in Mason's manual, which is our governing rules, when you do a reconsideration, it stops the progress of the bill until the reconsideration is finalized. What happened, though, was the second that Stavros Anthony, the presiding officer, said, this bill is passed, it was immediately supposedly transferred to the Assembly, and they voted on it 30 seconds before we finished it on the Senate side, before I'd even called for the reconsideration. It's the weirdest thing.
So, okay, explain what it did. What did the bill do?
Well, first of all, what the bill did was it changed the makeup of the Legislative Commission. Legislative Commission, for those of those folks listening to us, if you're worried about the constant growth in government, it isn't just the legislature, it's the administrative bodies, the various bureaucracies. They introduce laws that are every bit as binding as the ones we pass. Those have to, though, before they become law, they have to go through the Legislative Commission. And we, as legislators, have an ability to stop bad regulation. So it's really an important thing that not many people know about. They were trying to change the makeup of that.
What was the makeup before they changed it?
Well, the traditional makeup is 6 and 6 from each party. Okay. And that's important. So what they did was they shifted it to where we, the Republican Party, were going to have 4, and they would have 8, basically. So it would eliminate our ability to block bad regulations. Anyway, that's what the regulation was at. It was at the last minute. Nobody knew about it. It was really a very bizarre thing. So anyway, I did some parliamentary things, frankly, trying to slow the progress down, also to have an opportunity to speak on it. Once I introduced the resolution for a motion for reconsideration, I have a right to speak on it, and the lieutenant governor, presiding Senate officer, gave me the opportunity. And then I spoke on it for several minutes. Filibustered a little bit.
Until about what time? 11:50?
Until I ran out of time, about 11:57 or so. And then anyway, it ends up passing on a party line vote. But I had delayed it enough that I thought it couldn't get to the assembly in time, because the way it is supposed to be done is you take the physical bill after it has been passed, and they literally have a runner that runs it over to the assembly. The assembly had already voted on it while we're still doing the motion for reconsideration. There's a really weird thing that happened there at the end. And the real problem, though, is we have no right to appeal to a judge or something, okay? The Senate and the Assembly are their own judges, and the majority party is the judge. They're the judge, jury, and executioner. So even though they'd violated several parliamentary procedures, the bill passed, and we really have no recourse to block that.
All right.
Anyway.
We are talking with Senator Ira Hansen about the last legislative session that just wrapped up, and we're going to be right back on Nevada Newsmakers.
A power line is more than a power line. It's maintaining the bottom line for small businesses. It's keeping the assembly line moving for our workforce. For our brightest minds, it's meeting a deadline. It's on the front line with our heroes. And on the sidelines of the biggest games. It's a direct line to our loved ones. And it's a lifeline for the most vulnerable. There's a lot on the line.
Meet Nevada Health Link, Nevada's official health insurance marketplace. Your link to savings, selection, free assistance, and name brand health insurance, where 90% of enrollees lower the cost of their monthly premium. Everyone deserves access to quality health coverage, no matter your income or family size. Visit NevadaHealthLink.com. A few minutes could save you hundreds of dollars per month.
Nevada Health Link. Our plans are made for your plans.
It's a good time to eat. It's a good time to play.
It's a good time to win.
Ooh, your good times are Tamarack.
Save money and take transit. Did you know you can ride the bus all day for less than what it would cost you for a gallon of gas? Plan your trip now by going to rtcwashoe.com.
We wouldn't steer you wrong with the gold standard of steaks at Joel's Chop House. Indulge in dry-aged steaks, seafood, Wagyu tomahawks, and great views of the Strip.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
Welcome back to Nevada Newsmakers. I'm Paul Enos. I'm here with Senator Ira Hansen of Senate District 14, which is Sparks all the way to Owyhee. So
Owyhee, right.
Big district.
Huge.
So we're talking about, kind of what happened at the end, the changing of the legislative commission, locking the lieutenant governor out of the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
Is there, any recourse? Is this something the courts can do? I mean, what's the thought moving forward?
Well, on the constitutional question of locking the lieutenant governor out from doing his constitutional responsibility, that is something a court would deal with. Overall, the courts, because of separation of powers, aren't going to get involved in the minutia of whether or not we're following parliamentary procedure. So all the stuff that I just talked about, I don't think the courts would want to touch with a 10-foot pole. If you really wanted to push it about locking the lieutenant governor out, because there were some questions there too, you have to call it. We were in recess. The presiding officer has to call us back. presiding officer was locked out in the hall, and when he came back, he didn't call us out of recess. So there's a lot of little parliamentary type stuff that you could probably make a case for. I don't think it's going to go anywhere because, again, the majority party is also the judge of all these actions. I do think I think it is going to come back politically to harm them, though, for trying to. I don't totally know what their strategy was, but it is absolutely improper to try to block the presiding officer. And this is a constitutional responsibility he has from presiding. And they knew they were doing something wrong because the minute I raised the point on a point of order, Lieutenant or President Pro Tem Marilyn Dondera-Loop stepped down and allowed Stavros Anthony, Lieutenant Governor, to do his job.
Well, I will say, I mean, as a lobbyist who, does have interests in that building, there were a lot of bills that were in the Assembly that were making their way to the Senate that didn't because of the filibuster. And I mean, I was okay with a lot of that, but I mean, some of the big ones that I think died, that people were really kind of pushing at the last minute. Governor's crime bill.
Okay, well, let's start with that one, first of all. The filibuster had nothing to do with that. That was DOA in the Assembly. It never left the Assembly. The day of sine die, they added a 99-page amendment to the governor's crime bill to kill it. And the governor's crime bill was never coming out of the Assembly. It never came to the Senate. So if you really think the last 30 minutes of the session we're going to jam a bunch of bills through, especially somewhat controversial ones being pushed by the governor, a Republican governor, in a democratically controlled legislative process, ain't going to happen. So the idea that the last 10 minutes where I did a little filibuster on that, the only thing that would have affected is Legislative Commission. That's it. Those other bills weren't even on the docket. We were never going to hear them. Okay, so the idea that, think about it. You're down to 15 or 20 minutes out of a 120-day session, and they're going to try to say, the reason all these bills got held up was because of a filibuster.
That's true.
It's BS. The reason that it got held up is because the Assembly leadership didn't want the bill to pass, tacked on a huge amendment.
And they had a committee hearing at 4 o'clock on sine die that went for about, 2.5, 3 hours almost.
That's what I'm saying. The idea that the filibuster in the last 10 minutes of the session somehow killed a bunch of major bills. I wish I had that much power. That'd be kind of unique to be able to use it. But that's just nonsense. What they did is they deliberately strung all this stuff out through the entire session and then weren't going to give the governor, they weren't going to give him his hearings anyway and give him his bills. And that's what happened. It had nothing to do with the filibuster. It had to do with the fact that the Democrats who controlled the legislature did not want to give the governor a victory.
Now, there was also some stuff that they were trying to get through, like the film tax credits.
Well, there was a lot of opposition in the Democrats and the Republicans to the whole film tax credit thing. I don't think the bill had the votes in either party. We've been giving away the farm when it comes to these tax abatements, tax credits, all these sorts of things to bring in these giant corporations. And it's killing small business because everybody, including truckers, get to pay a disproportionate share of the taxes because these giant corporations don't. Now we're going to have Hollywood come in and give them a big tax break. Guess what? Hollywood can come to Nevada anytime it wants. Why do I have to force the Nevada taxpayers to subsidize them to bring them to Nevada? Do we really want them in Nevada anyway? Look what they did in California. Why are they leaving California? I mean, that's their baby, man. That's the state they created. And now we're going to bring them to Nevada and have the rest of the Nevada taxpayers finance it? Hell no. And the Democrats felt that way too. So I don't think that had a chance of getting out of the legislature.
Well, and it was kind of interesting because the Senate was going to change theirs to a study. The Assembly, was working to get theirs out. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about some of the legislation that you put forward, and kind of where it went. Some of your babies this session.
Well, I only had 3 really, because when you're in the minority, you don't get to have big bills. For the Pyramid Lake Indian Tribe, we had the bill to. What happened was about 2.5 million gallons of sewage was spilled into the Truckee River. Nobody told anybody downstream about it in Sparks. So we got that to where now that the Nevada environmental folks would get involved, make sure. That was one. Another was they had the crazy regulation by the Department of Wildlife that made it illegal for people to pick up skulls that had horns or antlers attached. We made that legal again. So little thing. And the last thing we allowed for, this is on behalf of the Nevada Cattlemen's Association. We got it so if they have trailers, they can have a 5-year registration window instead of a 1 or a 3. So those were my bills that actually made it all the way through.
All right, we are here with Senator Ira Hansen talking about the last legislative session. We're going to be right back on Nevada Newsmakers.
Welcome to Story County, where history meets innovation, and a pioneering spirit continues to shape our future. At the heart of the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, we power the future with global leaders in technology and manufacturing, driving progress that reaches far beyond our county lines. From advanced manufacturing to tech innovation, our industries are creating thousands of quality careers, fueling a vibrant economy that benefits every Nevadan. But it's more than just growth. Our community is our foundation, supporting families, empowering local initiatives, and creating a place where everyone belongs. Be part of a legacy built on bold ideas and boundless possibilities. Join us in building a brighter future right here in Story County. Story County, helping build Nevada's future.
As you know, Reno is booming. Toll's development company is helping it grow with insightful design and development, building community with every project, adding beauty, adding excitement, emphasizing our shared humanity. Reno is becoming bigger. Toll's development is helping it become better, more livable, more enjoyable. To learn more, go to tollsdevelopment.com. tollsdevelopment.com.
Welcome to the Winnemucca Big R.
Hi, I'm John Walker. Welcome to Big R Lovelock.
Hi, I'm Rich Martin. Welcome to Fallon Big R.
My name is Braden. Welcome to Big R Fernley.
Hi, I'm Kelly. Welcome to Big R Sparks.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
Welcome back to Nevada Newsmakers. I'm Paul Enos, talking to Senator Ira Hansen about the last part of the legislative session. Now, you had some bills that didn't get through, some ones that I really kind of liked. And let's tell people, just remind people kind of what you do in the real world outside the legislature.
Well, I am a plumbing contractor, and that's the biggest thing I do. Of course, I have 8 kids, 24 grandkids, so I have a lot of family connections. The biggest one that didn't get through, and one that I think is probably the most important that I hope ends up on the ballot, is an attempt to control the out-of-control billboard lawyers and their 40% fees that they're charging everybody. For all the folks listening to us talk right now, if you've been wondering what's going on with your car insurance, your auto insurance, or why it's going through the roof, every time you drive down the highway and you see those billboards, you're paying for it. And we had a bill to try to rein that in. It got derailed fairly early on. Plus, those trial lawyers are very wealthy and they spend a lot of money politically. But I do hope at some point that ends up again on the ballot, and so the people can vote on coming up with a way to cap what trial lawyers will charge on these insurance cases.
So, just for context, do you have any idea how much money they spend on local legal advertising in Nevada?
I do. I think it was $235 million a year or something.
223, yeah.
I was close.
That's a big number.
Yeah. And that's coming through the settlements that the insurance companies are doing with these attorneys. In other words, all of you people out there driving cars and trucks and paying through the nose for your auto insurance, you're funding those billboard campaigns.
So when you were the chairman of the Judiciary Committee in 2015,
correct?
What did you do to curb some of that?
Well, in our industry, we had a huge problem with construction defect litigation, and we were able to cap that. In fact, we were able to pretty much eliminate that and get it back to legitimate construction defect issues. And we passed that bill and got construction defect settlements back to a reasonable level. And basically, we eliminated the mandatory mandatory lawyer fee portion of it. After that, the whole industry got back to normal. Insurance rates dropped like a rock, and people who have legitimate construction defects still have opportunities to get that taken care of. But that's the same concept that we need to do for auto insurance.
So what would it take to get that done at the next legislative session?
We got to get a Republican majority in both houses and keep a Republican governor. And then we got to make sure that the trial lawyers don't fund a bunch of those people too. Worst case scenario, we'll have to put it on the ballot. I think, though, in my party, there was strong support to cap fees on attorneys to like 20% or something, instead of that 40 plus all the other fees they tack on. And get it so every other billboard in Nevada isn't being paid for by the people who buy auto insurance in this state.
Yeah, that and weed. That's what I see. All right, hey, Senator, thank you so much. Really appreciate you coming on, and always great to talk to you.
Thank you.
We're going to be right back on Nevada Newsmakers.
Each day, the Children's Advocacy Alliance partners with leaders, legislators, and families across Nevada to improve children's health, education, economic well-being, and safety. We recognize Nevada will be no better than the state of its children. Be a part of this change. Be a supporter of the Children's Advocacy Alliance. For more information, go to caanv.org.
Imagine a magical garden that feeds Carson City's hungry and homeless, teaches our high school students agriculture, creates hanging floral displays to beautify downtown, and yet charges nothing. It's not magic. It's the Greenhouse Project. It's real, it's growing, and it needs your help. Go online to carsоncitygreenhouse.org so together we can grow it forward.
The trucking industry is the most resilient link in the supply chain, moving 95% of our freight in the Silver State. And while essential, the road isn't always smooth. Supply chain disruptions, rising fuel costs, and unrealistic rules and laws that hamper our ability to serve our customers and country. Our prosperity and every sector of the economy, manufacturing, mining, medicine, and food from farm to table, is tied to trucks. There's nothing without trucking.
Southwest Specialties has been making the homes and businesses of Nevada beautiful for more than 20 years. Their experienced designers and craftsmen create the walkways, backyards, water features, and a variety of outdoor cooking areas that add curb appeal and value to your investment. Call today or visit them at their website and see how they can make your outdoor spaces special. Southwest Specialties, creative, distinctive, beautiful.
Welcome to the Ahern Boutique Hotel, where luxury and warmth come together in the heart of Las Vegas.
We take pride in offering a one-of-a-kind experience for both locals and tourists.
Join us for handcrafted cocktails and an unforgettable experience.
Joel's Chop House, the perfect place to savor views of the Las Vegas Strip.
Satisfy your cravings at the Ahern Chocolate Shop.
No smoking, no resort fees, and the parking is always free. The Ahern Luxury Boutique Hotel is your home away from home.
If you missed any of today's shows or want to see shows from the past 2 decades, you can go to NevadaNewsmakers.com and follow us on X at NV Newsmakers. Thanks for watching and listening.